Hello and welcome. She called him Uncle Saddam, and her family spent holidays with him. But to save her from the wandering eyes of the powerful Iraqi leader, her mother arranged her marriage halfway across the world. Today she's rebuilt her life in America and dedicated it to helping women in war zones. This week on One on One, meet independent and motivated campaigner and author Zainab Salbi. Through her organization, Women for Women International, Zainab Salbi has helped more than 50,000 victims of conflict find their feet by providing $24 million in aid. But for a woman who's done so much to expose and fight the human toll of war, it took some time to reveal the secrets of her own private horror. She opened up in her book Between Two Worlds, which documented a family's relationship with the Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein. Now the girl known to Saddam as the pilot's daughter has overcome her insecurities and is helping others to do the same. Let's start with your organization, Women for Women International. It was an organization you founded when you were just 23 years old. What's the prime focus of that? What's the prime mission?
The organization works with women survivors of wars, and we aim at helping them move from victims to survivors to active citizens. The principle of the organization is that women deal with the brunt of the war consequences and post-war consequences as well. That we really need to get women at the negotiating tables when we are talking about building or rebuilding societies, economies, and democracies. And how do we get women at the grassroots level to show their contribution to the economy and to help them stand on their feet?
What's so lacking in the international policies or the policies of governments that makes your organization so valuable?
Lacking is true deliveries about women's rights, actually. I think that we've got to a stage in which a lot of politicians do talk about women's rights, and I'm now used to hearing very good speeches, honestly, about women's rights. But when it comes to times to deliveries, that there is very little deliveries in terms of women's rights.
Now, has your experience left you cynical of governments and politicians?
My experience it got me to a stage in which I watch the talks and I really want the deliveries. We need to see women at the negotiating tables when we are talking about peace. We need to see women's perspective of what does it mean to have peace. A lot of times people interpret peace, most of the times, people interpret peace that my life is being improved today or right after the signing of the peace agreement. And women deal with the very direct tangibles, with food, with jobs, with health, with education. We need to incorporate women's views and perspective of how to build peace and sustain peace at the negotiating tables. And I see this missing both in the Western world as well as the global South.
I've heard you say in an interview that we've become accustomed to violence against women. Why do you think that?
I think because we often explain violence against women by using cultures to justify it. It's a marginalized issue. When it happened in Afghanistan, for example, with the arrival of the Taliban, and the first violence that happened by the Taliban is against women. And for years, the whole world looked at the other side and justified it by Afghan culture and traditions and things like that. If you look Iraq, for an example, first kidnappings that happened in Iraq was actually of women right after the war, and where trafficking started within 2 months of the war. And again, instead of seeing that as an indicator to what's going to come up, we just saw it as a marginalized issue on the side impacting women, not a big deal.
You've drawn attention to your cause and your organization through your own personal connection with Saddam Hussein because of the book and your history in Iraq and with Saddam Hussein. To what extent do you find that has helped draw attention to you and to your organization, and largely because the story of Saddam Hussein hasn't really ended yet?
Well, I was very hesitant sharing my story, to be honest. But I am someone who dedicated my life going to war zones and encouraging women to break their silence and talking about violence against women, because I really believe that that's the only way where we can stop this vicious cycle. It took me a very humbling experience, actually. It took one of the women that I was interviewing in Congo. And her name is Nabitu. She's a 55-year-old woman, illiterate, had gone through horrible violence during the war, was gang raped. Her daughters were gang raped in front of her. Her son was shot in front of her. Where she was displaced. She had her hand broken, cuts all over. And when I was interviewing her, even the dress she had on was borrowed from someone who gave it to her as a charity. And after finishing her story, she told me, I never told anybody but you my story. And it was a time in which I was asked to write the book about me as opposed to other Iraqi women, as I'm used to writing about other women. And that's when I asked, I was like, so what should I do with your story? Should I keep it as a secret, or should I tell the whole world about it? And that's when she answered, she's saying, if I can tell the story, my story, to the whole world, I would. But I can't. You can. You go ahead and tell the story, just not the neighbors. It was a very humbling moment in my life, because here is a woman who realized, by breaking my silence, maybe I can stop that cycle of violence against other women. And I cried for like 5 hours after that, and that was a turning point in my decision to share my own story and to sort of break my own silence and defeat a lot of, and deal with my own demons and my own fears, and perhaps be more consistent with the very values that I preach and I believe in.
Now, looking at your childhood, it was actually a particularly nice one. From what I read in your book, you describe yourself as loved, educated, and spoiled. Describe to me what life was like in Baghdad at that time under Saddam Hussein.
Saddam gave us a lot of things. You know, I always say, I say many things. The devil is a fallen angel. You know, is not in Hollywood movies a red-faced man with the horns. He's a fallen angel. He has a charm and charisma to him. And definitely in the case of Iraq, Saddam gave us a lot of things. There were the development of the country, of the city particularly. There were always cars and gifts and all of these things being given. But I think what he took away from us in the meantime was actually our very souls. We got into a stage where we were fearing each other, where husbands and wives do not talk to each other, where parents are afraid to express anything in front of their kids because the teachers often ask the kids, what does your daddy think of Uncle Saddam, and what does your mommy think of Uncle Saddam? And there are horror stories of parents being executed because of what the child innocently changed.
You actually called him Amu, uncle in Arabic, and I was wondering, can you remember the first time you met Saddam Hussein and what the interaction was like?
Well, every single Iraqi child was taught to call him Ammu, or uncle. We sang for him, we danced for him, we wrote poetry for him, we painted for him in school. That was our training. I also had the awareness that he is Uncle Saddam. And that's the story of my life. I saw him as just Uncle Saddam, and I saw him throughout my teenage life as the brutal dictator that committed so many crimes against so many people in Iraq. And it was a parallel scene that I had to survive with and adjust with. And one of the survival skills that my mom taught me is that I have to smile when he smiled. I have to cry when he cried. I have to watch every single feeling I have and not express it, because as my mother said, he knows how to read eyes.
I presume it didn't get any easier when your father became his personal pilot, and you, as you describe it, you came known as the pilot's daughter. How was that? How was it sort of being connected with him? What sort of effect did it have on your relationship with your friends? And
Saddam in many ways was like a poison gas leaked into our kitchen and our house, and we breathed him slowly, and we tried to resist slowly, and we surrendered slowly. I hated being referred to as the pilot's daughter. I think he took over my identity, and no one could see me for who I am and what I stand for. And that's part of the reason why I so adamantly hid this identity when I arrived to the US and decided to create my own self from the beginning, with no one to know who I was before, except for my husband, and until the book was published. But I hated how he took all our lives. I mean, every single weekend we were asked to spend it in his farmhouse. We did not have friends. We did not have, our house was bugged. We had to drop things at the spare of a moment when he wanted us to go there. We were all prisoners to a circus, basically, to entertain him.
Let's look at your mother, your relationship with your mother. She died very tragically of Lou Gehrig's disease, aged only 52, I think. And I know you've said that you really didn't fully understand her until that point when she died. Tell me about the relationship, and what qualities perhaps that she's taught you that you can carry on with.
Well, my mother was a very strong woman in Iraq, as many Iraqi women are actually. And I remember her very adamant, telling me that I have to be strong and I have to be independent and I have to be financially independent and I should never let anybody touch me the wrong way or talk to me the wrong way, and I have to marry for love. And in that, she was very passionate about that. I mean, sometimes she would hold my shoulder and she's like, "You've got to be strong, you've got to be strong." And so I felt very betrayed by my own mother when at the age of 20, she arranged a marriage for me and to come into America. And I felt very confused. It took me about 7 years to really have a discussion with my mother of why she did what she did.
And she actually did have a parallel with some of these women you help, in that what she was basically trying to do was help you.
Absolutely. What she was basically trying to tell me is that so many women were vulnerable to violence and rape by Saddam Hussein and his surrounding family members and the government. As I call it, it was a vertical violence in Iraq, a state-sponsored violence against women. My mother did what so many Iraqi mothers do, actually, was try to ship me out of the country when she sensed that there could be a possibility of danger in here. And over the years, I learned that she was no different, really, than the women I meet in my work in Afghanistan or in Congo, who often offer me their kids and say, "Take them, maybe you'll give them a better life." And that's what mothers do to save their kids sometimes.
Zainab, of course, Iraq has changed now. Don't go away. We're going to take a short break here. We're back with One on One with Zainab Salbi in just a minute.